finding a domain of a function is simply finding if the x value works. And all we're really looking for to do this is square root signs where we have a negative sign, which we know is an imaginary number, or if we have a fraction with 0 in the denominator. These two are the only two times we can't use x. So if we look at letter A, you can put anything in for x, so this is all real numbers. There are no exceptions. You can use any x you want. But if we look over here, we have a fraction. And so when would this equal 0? Well, it would equal 0 when x equals a negative 1. So our answer would be all reals except negative 1. And so that's the domain. So what we're not going to do now is we're going to do algebra with these functions. And all that means is add, subtract, multiply, dividing the letters. So right here I have two functions, f and g, where I want to add them, but I want to put the 4 in first. So if I do the function for f, I'm going to get 4 squared plus 4, which equals 16 plus 4, which is 20. And then if I go, not the f, but the g with the 4, I would get 4 minus 5, which equals a negative 1. And if I add those two up, I get 19. So there is our function of f plus g using 4. So now, if we don't know what that function is, like the x, then we would subtract as if it was just an x. So I'm going to take my function x plus squared plus x, that's my f function, and I'm going to subtract the g function, and the g function happens to be x minus 5. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the f function and I'm subtracting the g function when it's just an x. So if I do the subtraction, I get x squared plus x minus x plus 5, because my subtraction is a subtraction of the whole function, so these signs change. And if I do the algebra, those cancel, so I end up with x squared plus 5. Now if I continue, I'm going to use the negative 3. So if I go through and do my, I got my function as x squared plus 5, I can just substitute the negative 3 in where the x is. So this becomes negative 3 squared plus 5, which is 9 plus 5, which equals 14. And so this answer would be 14. Continuing with our algebra of functions, in this case we're going to multiply the two functions. So if I multiply the two functions, x squared plus x, and I'm going to multiply that times the g function, which is x minus 5, I end up with FOIL. So I'm going to do my x squared times x, which is x cubed, my x squared times the minus 5, which is minus 5x squared. My x times my x would be plus x squared, and x times 5 would be a minus 5x. And so if I do the math, this will be x cubed minus 4x squared minus 5x. So that's what the function is multiplied. Now if I want to use the negative 2, I would just substitute negative 2 in where x is. So negative 2 cubed would be a negative 8. Negative 2 squared would be 4 times negative 4, which would be a negative 16. And negative 2 times a negative 5 would be a positive 10. And if I add those up, I get a negative 24 plus 10, which would be a negative 14. So now I'm going to do division. So I'm going to put my function x squared plus x, that's the f function, over the g function, which is x minus 5. And to do this, I need to factor. So we're going to use our last chapter. So I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, which is x, and then x plus 1 over x minus 5. And so there's my answer. And so now all I just want to do is substitute the 7 in. So if I substitute the 7, I get 7 times 7 plus 1 over 7 minus 5. So that's 8 times 7 is 56 over 2. And if I divide those, I would get 28. And so my answer would be 28 for the 7.